Welcome back to Facts and Sass. I'm Valley, your common sense advocate, yet always suspicious cowgirl.
Yes, hey Valley, and I'm Biddy, your fast-talking New Yorker with a finely tuned BS detector. Today's episode, we're peeling back the slick PR curtain of the entertainment industry to ask who controls the culture, and why does it always seem like it's staring us off this cliff?
Yeah, especially with everything going on with the Diddy trial, certain things coming to light within the industry, we thought it would be appropriate to do a deep dive into the dark side of Hollywood. So we are calling this multi-part series the deep dive into the puppet masters, who really pulls the strings in the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm. And they've been showing us for quite some time, as you could see right there, that someone is pulling the strings on our favorite artists.
Right. And before we get sued, no, we're not accusing anyone of anything. What we're doing is just investigating long-standing allegations that the media has been complicit in manufacturing all of this chaos for profit.
Yeah, this is about power, right? Who has it? Who gets protected? Who gets sacrificed? And why is it always the young, the broken, and the bright who get turned into these pawns?
So let's define the media. We're talking about more than news. It's entertainment, music, streaming services, social platforms, all the screens that you scroll. Right. So in the entertainment industry specifically, the term gained traction as radio and film became major cultural forces in the 1930s and the 1940s, with television further cementing its usage in the 50s. And the phrase mass media became common during this period to describe the broad reach of these entertainment and information channels. So by the mid 20th century, media was firmly entrenched as a term encompassing the entertainment industry's output from TV shows to movies alongside news and advertising.
Yeah, so the media, aka these entertainment outlets, became embedded into pretty much everything we consumed. And the theory goes that the elite corporate interests had a heavy hand, still do, in what we and who we're influenced by. This theory and those that support it also continue to claim that these powerful forces would push content that distracts, degrades, and desensitize the masses. Think glorified violence, over sexualized kids, celebration of dysfunction, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so what are we even talking about? It's the Rockefeller's educational model. So programming the public to be obedient, not critical. Creating a school curriculum that was meant to spawn compliant, robotic, factory-style workers instead of future possible leaders of the industry, right? He even says these famous quotes, including one that says, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers."
Yep, they always tell us, we just don't listen.
Right.
So who do the elites of the media industry consist of, right? Let's just get like a picture of it. In movies, you have these studio heads who basically oversee the strategic and operational aspects. They play a pivotal role in shaping the artists' careers. Their responsibilities, they blend business leadership, they do creative guidance, and industry networking to maximize an artist's success. Okay. Then you have the business managers who are responsible for overseeing the financial and operational aspects of an entertainer's career, ensuring their financial stability and business interests are protected. And last but not least, entertainment lawyers who specialize in legal matters for entertainers, providing expertise to protect their rights, negotiate contracts, and navigate the complex legal landscape of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, so we also have indirect representation, where someone can become mentors to young actors, right? Such as the executive directors and producers. So producers like the infamous Dan Schneider, whom I'm sure at this point you may have heard all about. But if you haven't, stay tuned for the show to find out more about him. So at a glance, these entertainers seem pretty well protected and taken care of. So that's at least what we hope. However, what we're going to showcase in our series and claims made by several artists say that they are not protected at all. And in fact, they were exploited and even worse behind the scenes.
Yeah, so let's talk about those child stars, shall we? Specifically today, we're going to focus on child movie stars who were sold as prodigies, molded as puppets by the puppet masters of Hollywood. However, once they've been monetized, innocence, it became a liability.
That was on me there. Yeah, so I mean, there's too many examples to state within the child star assembly line, but some familiar faces would be like Amanda Bynes, Drew Barrymore, Ariana Grande, Orlando Brown. And even going back to the golden age of Hollywood with people like Shirley Temple, which, like, if you've gone to a restaurant, you'll order a Shirley Temple, right? Or if you want the alcoholic version, you get a Dirty Shirley.
I used to love Shirley Temples. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like my first drink when I turned 21 was a dirty Shirley. And when you think about it, they're naming a drink off of a child star who was often exploited.
Yeah, it's kind of like a metaphor, right? It's like it's so crazy that you bring that up because it's like you have this drink, right? That's the main drink is non-alcoholic. Like the regular Shirley Temple is non-alcoholic, is like grenadine and ginger ale or whatever Sprite. But it's among it's in the bar where a child shouldn't be, and it's among like all the liquor and all the dirty stuff and the stuff that can get you drunk. So it's kind of like a metaphor for little Shirley Temple in the midst of all of like this stuff that she had no business being in the middle of.
Right. And, all of these child stars were forced to comply with studio standards that were largely inappropriate. So when you think of a non-alcoholic drink amongst alcoholic beverages, it's kind of like the child stars amongst all of the adults in the room that heavily exploited them. So, these stories aren't just rare, they're just very well buried.
Yeah. So Shirley Temple, right? From her iconic curls to her tap dancing routines, Shirley was the face of Hollywood in the 1930s. But behind the scenes, her story is more complex than the image we remember.
Right. Her rise to fame actually began at just 3 years old. So she became a sensation with her performances in films like Bright Eyes and Curly Top. Her infectious smile and talent actually made her the #1 box office draw from 1935 to 1938, which was huge at the time, right? So, this was saving 20th Century Fox from bankruptcy. And let's see a quick clip that showcases her talent and why the whole world was smitten with her.
Yeah.
We'll play our theme song.
You know that song, don't you?
Sure I do.
Well, then sing it. Come on. Come on, Charlie,
sing it. I've thrown away my toys, even my drum and trains. I want to make some noise with real life aeroplanes. Someday I'm going to fly. I'll be a pilot too. And when I do, how would you like to be my crew?
Yeah. So cute voice, darling little outfit and curls and everything. Yeah.
Amongst adult men, though.
Yes. And that's the one thing that is pointed out in a lot of her videos is, she's like, I'm going to throw away my toys. I'm going to, and I want to just kind of like enter into the adult world. And there were a lot of movies that we, kind of like scanned through to just see like which ones we can showcase. You guys, let's just say, we decided that that it's not something that we should be showing you all. Like we shouldn't be exploiting her anymore. But yeah, so her early career wasn't without controversy. Before her big break, Shirley appeared in a series of short films known as the Baby Burlesques. Yes, you heard that right. These films featured toddlers acting out adult scenarios, often in suggestive contexts. One of the films of the series, War Babies, and that's the one I was talking about, set in the fictional Buttermilk Pete's Cafe, portrays a group of baby-faced soldiers enjoying entertainment provided by a dancer named Charmaine, played by Shirley Temple. Okay. The soldiers drinking milk, playing with lollipops, offering lollipops in exchange for a kiss. They vie for Charmaine's attention, leading to a rivalry between a captain and a sergeant. Their competition includes offering her treats, as I said, and attempting to win her affection. The situation escalates. Some soldiers get called into action. As they depart, the sergeant steals a kiss from Charmaine behind the captain's back, and she bids them a farewell. All at this age that we just showed you. Actually, not even younger than what she is here. Like she looks like maybe 2 or 3, probably extremely early. Shirley later condemned these films, calling them a cynical exploitation of childish innocence. We actually also have a clip, and it's going to show Shirley Temple, and she's on the Larry King Live talking about the moment where a studio executive actually exposed himself to the young star. So we're going to show that now.
I went to MGM for one picture, thank goodness, only one. And when I got there with my mother, we were separated. She went into the office of Louis B. Mayer, and I went into the office of Arthur Freed. and he was going to talk to me about a movie he wanted to put me in. I'm 12 years old, you know. And I thought he was a producer, but instead he was an exhibitor. And I'd never seen anyone naked before, except myself. So I had no clue about what was happening. And so it struck me so funny, I laughed at him. And I laughed uproariously. I had tears, you know, and he got infuriated. And he said, out, 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 go.
Did you tell your mother?
Well, I went down. I was very quiet. I went down and met her in the lobby of the administration building. She came out very quietly from Louis B. Mayor's office. And we walked hand in hand silently to the car, which was unusual. We got in the car driving home. I said, Mom, you won't believe what happened to me. And I told her what happened, and she got kind of quiet. She said, well, you don't know what happened to me. And Louis B. Mayer wasn't as bad as Freed was to me.
You tried it?
He came on to my mother. And so we both decided that we didn't like MGM much. It was, you know, it was better at...
Yeah.
So, I mean, she was often put in like these inappropriate situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like as her fame grew, so did the scrutiny. Critics and audiences alike often sexualized her performances. Like, again, she was 3 to 5, starring in up to 18 films. And film historian Janine Bassinger notated that Shirley's constantly kissing little mouth held in adult promise, a sentiment echoed by others who saw her as baby's sex pot. Again, this isn't like us calling her that. That's just a name she was actually given in Hollywood. So, you know, children should like never be objectified, but this just wasn't like idle commentary. She was surrounded by predators, right? And then at the age of 17, she faced an attempted assault by producer David O. Selznick, who trapped her in his office. She managed to evade his advances, showcasing her quick thinking and resilience, and was able to tell her story. But again, you know, this was later in her career and she was still a minor, you know, just kind of put things into perspective here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think about like child labor laws now, how they're they have to practice those in Hollywood these days. It's because of people like this and Judy Garland and what went on with them, and just like treating them like workhorses, you know? So they were basically the trailblazers for those movements of, you know, trying to protect kids in the industry, which, you know, unfortunately didn't get too far, but at least you know, some child labor laws happened. But so despite these challenges, Shirley's family's life wasn't without its own struggles. Her father allegedly mishandled her finances. It's not the first time we've heard that.
I was going to say that,
like Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, like it's always, it just seems like they look at their kids as like a cash cow. Like, who cares what happens to them? Yeah.
Right.
Leaving her with only a fraction of her earnings. Can you imagine 18 films, like constant, and leaving her with just a fraction of her earnings after all the work she did and everything that she went through? In her autobiography, she expressed a surprising lack of anger over the situation, reflecting her forgiving nature despite the betrayal. After retiring from films at 22, Shirley transitioned into politics. She served as the U.S. ambassador to Ghana and Czechoslovakia, as a chief of protocol of the United States. She also became an advocate for breast cancer awareness after her own diagnosis in 1972. So her legacy, like, it reminds us of the importance of protecting young talent in the industry and ensuring their well-being is prioritized over profit. And no matter what you go through, you know, coming up in this industry, speaking to the ones of today that are dealing with everything they're dealing with, you can turn your life around and turn, you know, lemons into lemonade, as she did.
Yeah, I had no idea she was even involved in politics. You know, I'm just like still kind of like in awe of how far back the exploitation of Hollywood really began, right? Like we're in the year 2025 and
it's still going. Yeah, it's still being, allegations are flying all over the place. Yeah.
We've never seen more allegations coming out of Hollywood with the Diddy trial, but this happened close to a century ago.
Yeah.
I mean, Shirley Temple's story is just kind of a testament to the resilience in the face of exploitation, right? Because she navigated the complexities of child stardom with grace, using her platform to make a really big positive impact later in life because she couldn't really, control the narrative when she was younger. So she wanted to make sure that her legacy was an important one, which we love to see.
Absolutely. And yeah, and just amazing what she went through and how she can just gracefully pass through it into something, so magnanimous as like what she ended up doing with her life. Now, does everyone remember watching sweet little Drew Barrymore back in the day in films like Firestarter? And of course, the major film E.T., where she had a breakout role. Here is just like a little clip. We can't play a lot of it because of, copyright, of course, but just to kind of get a little sense of like, what, just kind of like the same thing as Shirley Temple, like what everybody was so enamored with little Drew Barrymore and how she became such a fast star.
Elliot.
I'm keeping him. What is it? He won't hurt you, Gertie. He won't hurt you, Gertie. Is he a boy or a girl? He's a boy. Was he wearing any clothes? No. But look, you can't tell. Not even Mom. Why not? Because grown-ups can't see him. Only little kids can see him. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just so natural on camera. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was 10 years old when I just realized that Elliot is played by Henry Thomas.
Is that his name? I think so.
Yeah, because I have been watching I've been rewatching like a lot of like the horror, like thriller movies and like series, and he's in like The Haunting of Hill House, he's in The Haunting of Bly Manor, and I was like, wait, that face looks familiar. So I just googled the cast of E.T., and you have several child stars in there that are still in the industry today. And I had zero idea there.
Sometimes they go like from like kind of like what Drew Barrymore did. She kind of never really left the industry. She was behind the scenes. She had a production company. Right. She segued, right? Exactly. Yeah. Another queen of segue, just like my co-host Valley. But yeah, and then you have others that just kind of like ghost out, or they go totally behind the scenes for a while, and then they come back in front of the camera. So you kind of forget. You don't see them growing up, and then when they reemerge, you forget their names like I do. I just know them as the character they played, and then you're like, oh wow, that's the same person. And then you see it, you see the face from like, you remember from when they were a kid. But yeah, so the thing you really need to understand is how an artist goes from someone plucked from the masses who has talent to an industry commodity, and later deemed a throwaway. They would find children who maybe came from broken households, or who had parents who seemed ready, willing, and able to offer up their kids, no questions asked. Then that child would be taken into private industry parties and would be put in inappropriate situations for minors involving drinking and drugs and God knows what else. We have a clip here that we're actually going to show of adult Drew Barrymore talking about her experiences.
How old were you when you first had alcohol?
9.
And then, well, how did you start to drink? So the usual way, somebody said, have a drink of this.
Right. Well, I had grown up very fast, and it's not very normal to see a 9-year-old at a big Hollywood party drinking. And it looks a little weird, and people were laughing and just saying, I dare you to do this, and I did, and I got really drunk, and it was such a scary, frightening feeling, yet it was such an escape from everything else in the world that I had a very liking to it. And
do you think that because it ran in the family? Because, I mean, there were generations of Barrymores who were keen on the drink.
Yeah, my whole family was definitely, they were all drinkers, and
like nervous laughter from the audience.
And They say it's hereditary, and I'm sure it is because I have a long list of it. But,
And what about the drugs?
that started when I was around 10 and 11, and
10. Who gave you your first drug, for goodness sake?
as I said then, they were friends, but they weren't really friends. And to me, it just seemed normal. All the people I were around did it, and I thought it was a way of life that was just normal to be living.
But I mean, the people you were around weren't the same age as you. They weren't.
No, I always had older friends. I was always with a very advanced older crowd from when I was about 6.
How did you feel? You must have felt, they must have made you feel good.
Yeah, it did. It was that great escape that you look for when you're younger, or actually at any age in your lifetime. You look for that escape to get away from your problems in life. And when you do drugs, your problems in normal life seem so much bigger that you just, you kind of do more just to get away from them.
It's a complete downward
It's a
spiral.
complete downhill cycle that you just get caught up into, and either you make it out or you don't, and it's very scary.
Either you make it out or you don't. What a statement.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, you see photos of her out with like cigarettes, and she was drinking, and all of her friends were older. Like, that's grooming.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I would be really interested to know who, because the gentleman there was asking her, I should have like looked to see what his name was, but the gentleman that was interviewing her was like, who gave you drugs at 10? And she was like, well, I thought they were my friends, but they weren't. But these are people that were at the industry parties. So I'm really curious as if there were other entertainers or just like industry heads, or, like who. Very, very
Yeah,
curious.
I mean, again, it could have been like members of her family, right? I mean, her situation is a little bit different than a lot of others because she grew up in the industry, like she had mentioned. And not only because she started acting at 11 months old, but also she essentially came from the Hollywood royalty, what our generation calls Nepo babies, which wasn't as common at the time. And now I feel like it's half of Hollywood, right? So the Barrymore family, from a British American acting dynasty, traces its acting roots from the mid-19th century London stage. So after migrating across the Atlantic Ocean, members of the family subsequently appeared in motion pictures, beginning with the silent film period of the 1890s to 1925 or 1929. And, was around the same time period of Shirley Temple, and then into the modern era of sound film. So her father, John Blythe Barrymore Jr., was actually a huge film star. So it's all interconnected, right?
Yeah, her one of her family members, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was like her grandfather or her uncle, or I can't remember now, but he was in It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. He was like, the big villain in that. He was like the big bank guy or whatever.
Lionel Barrymore.
Yeah, so whoever that guy is to her. But yeah, he's part of the dynasty, basically. They've been around forever, all the big blockbuster films and everything. So it's kind of like, when you think about her growing up in this, in this Hollywood royalty status, coming from generations of actors, been in the industry, shouldn't her family, who had this going on, hearing the stories, they know, most likely, I mean, come on, how these parties would go, and what could possibly happen to the children at them, and actively protect her from them and the people who would invite her to them. Like, since they didn't, it all kind of gives the impression that the family knew, but allowed her to go to these age-inappropriate parties anyway, because it would mean networking and it basically exploding her career by partying with industry giants. Yeah. Like it like, you got to be kidding me. Like, us just regular Joe Schmoes, like, we're over here like outside the industry, and we can see what everybody just pretends like they don't see. You're gonna tell me you're in it and you don't know? Yeah.
I was actually talking about it with one of my friends this morning, and it's like, bring back harsh punishment for enablers, right? And I did look up It's a Wonderful Life. I know we said it was Lionel Barrymore. So it was Drew Barrymore's great uncle, who was an actor and then later a film director. So he really knew what was going on behind the scenes.
Had to. Come on.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. So Drew Barrymore, she rose to fame as a child actress with her breakout role for E.T. at age 7. I remember going to that ride at Universal Studios. It's not there anymore. But, Universal Studios, right? Everyone definitely profited and abused their power to have Drew Barrymore put in these situations. Because again, this was at age 7. Age 9. So I know you mentioned something about age 10. I don't know if she said a specific age in the interview, but by age 9, she started drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and then by age 10, she was using like marijuana, and then by 12, she was actually doing cocaine. Like, that's absolutely wild to me, because again, when you think about like when someone's brain develops, someone's brain, like their frontal cortex, doesn't even develop until they're 25, and you are giving a child these substances. That's why there's this huge debate with ADHD medications and stimulants, because you're giving stimulants to children when in reality, you don't know how their brain is going to react to that, how that's going to affect their development, if they're ever going to get back from that.
Right. Like, kind of like working through problems is a growing pain that I think it's like something that we all have to go through in order to become functioning adults that know how to deal with problems and obstacles. If you're basically numbing yourself from such an early age and kind of taking yourself out of reality, how are you going to learn how to deal with life ever? You'll have nothing to go back to say, oh, I remember that, getting like teased when I was a kid, and how I got over it and everything and grew up, and everything's cool now. Like, she didn't have that.
Right. And I know that you mentioned, like, were her parents complicit? And the answer to that is yes, because her mother, Jade Barrymore, actually took her to nightclubs like Studio 54, which was really popular back in, I think it was like the 70s to like the 90s, where Drew was introduced to this environment and the things that were being handed out like candy, right? So at the young age of 12, her drug use led to her being blacklisted by many Hollywood producers, which is, again, ironic because they're enabling her. And then the same people who work in Hollywood that are enabling her are blacklisting her because she was unable to be sober on set.
Go figure.
Because again, she's a child and she doesn't quite understand, how long these, substances last in your system. She probably doesn't want to go through a withdrawal, right? So she's just trying to keep the high going.
She's just reacting to what her body's doing. She's not thinking of how, what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. So she entered rehab as basically just a preteen at the ripe age of 13. So it looks like she was blacklisted for about a year, went to rehab, and then she spent time in a mental institution after that. So she spent 18 months in treatment, including time in that institution. And again, this affected her. And at 14, she was legally emancipated from her parents. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So basically, due to her turbulent home life and substance issues, at 14, she was emancipated. She then published her memoir called Little Girl Lost, detailing her struggles with addiction and her journey through rehabilitation. Okay, I'm going to say that again. At 14, Drew Barrymore published a memoir. Okay, who has that much of a history, trials, tribulations, like all of this stuff at 14? I mean, she basically lived an entire lifetime, just the first, like, a little over a decade of her life.
She grew up so quickly.
She grew up so quickly.
She was forced to.
So here are some poignant quotes from Drew Barrymore's memoir, Little Girl Lost, which shed light on her early struggles and journey toward recovery. Some quotes from the book read, "I never had a chance to play with dolls like other kids. I started working at 11 months old." This quote reflects Barrymore's early introduction to the entertainment industry, as we mentioned, highlighting the loss of a typical childhood. Another...
Well, I was just going to say, right?
Yeah.
If she never had an opportunity to play with dolls, then you have
just
to wonder.
Use imagination. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, like how her imagination was affected by that.
Yeah, because if you think you're a little kid, right? Like you're pretending to be a princess. You're pretending to be a knight, you're pretending to be Spider-Man, you're pretending to be like all of these things. She was in these very adult movies. When you think of like Firestarter, that was one of my favorite movies where she basically had like telekinetic or telekinesis or one of those things, powers where she could like start fires with her mind. It was a very adult film. And she did that at a very young age. So like, her practice in the world of imagination as like a normal kid would, it wasn't normal. It was like in this industry full of very adult behaviors. So she didn't get to flesh that out. Another one of her quotes from the book was, "Life was to be lived, no matter how chaotic the time, no matter how wild the adventure, no matter how spontaneous the experience." Basically emphasizing her embrace of life's unpredictability. She's learning to cope with everything that she went through. She's also mentioned something like, "There is something liberating about being at rock bottom. You have nowhere to go but up." That's actually a really cool way to look at it. Like if you've already established that you've hit rock bottom, you're putting your mindset that the only way to go is up, and you're gonna kind of like, what do you call it when you when you're trying to make something happen, kind of like manifest it or something like that. You're kind of like almost manifesting in your brain, and you will like live it out.
Which is so wild that she's coming up with all these quotes at 14.
Yes.
Like she was very wise beyond her years.
Absolutely.
Which I guess is kind of a silver lining, but I mean, talking about being liberated, when you are, you think of it from like a women's point of view, like we hit puberty at about that age, and it's like coming up with these wise quotes,
like so grounded and like aware,
right, like that you would expect like an older woman,
like even 1920. I don't think I was that, like I definitely was not that. Like it took me quite some time to get responsible. Listen to this other quote that she says: "What you can't run away from, you have to find some way to accept." That actually gave me the chills, because she can't run away from her past. She can't run away from everything she went through, all the trauma she might have endured, the things she might have seen being at Studio 54 at such a young age, like on drugs and all this stuff, like the stuff that was going on, like all out in the open, sexual stuff that was going on. Like, come on, like that's, she can't get rid of that. But yeah, these quotes basically provide an insight into Barrymore's resilience, and the lessons she learned through her tumultuous youth. For if you want to have like a more comprehensive understanding of her experiences, you might consider reading the full memoir. So go check that out. If you want to give her some support, it's called Little Girl Lost. So I'm sure you can find that, anywhere books are sold.
Yeah. So in her late teens and early 20s, this is like the era that I really, was watching a lot of the teen movies, like in the 90s and the 2000s. Like I loved that era for
me too.
Mm-hmm. And she staged a career comeback with roles in films like Poison Ivy, The Wedding Singer, Never Been Kissed.
That was such a cute movie.
Yeah, and 50 First Dates, that's like one of my favorite movies. She was also, so she starred in 50 First Dates, and then she also produced it, and then she produced Charlie's Angels. You know, again, just expanding like her role in Hollywood beyond acting. Again, she has written multiple memoirs. So Little Girl Lost, like you read some quotes from, and Wildflower, sorry, kind of just detailing like her personal journey beyond acting. And then in 2020, she launched the Drew Barrymore Show, which is one of the largest daytime talk shows that showcases her warmth and her candid nature. I think she really just feels comfortable in something that she can call her own. So, you know, she's widely recognized for her resilience, her candor about her past, you know, really that openness and her reinvention as a successful sober adult and media personality, right? So again, you can tell she has found both an environment that is her safety net and where she also continues to flourish.
It's like she took control of the narrative.
Right, exactly. And so far, we have talked about 2 child stars who did take control of the narrative. But, you know, let's just get back to the alleged game plan of these predators, because we are focusing a lot on the child star assembly line. But we will get into a lot of the executive directors and producers as well. So whoever this person was, right, who was doing the casting, had their eye on these young stars, and they would slowly gain the trust of the youth, often getting their legal guardians on board as well. So sometimes, you know, these parents are aware, sometimes they're not. Right. But they are making them feel comfortable in adult settings, which would eventually lead to mild touching, an array of other inappropriate situations, the illicit drug use, you know, things that we have covered. Once the predator has a prodigy where they want them, they just immediately throw them into stardom, dangling their careers over their heads and, you know, threatening to do an array of things if they don't allow this cycle to continue with unbreakable contracts and NDAs, brand deals, you know, you name it.
Yep. And if at any point the star decides to escape from these clutches, then the smear campaign starts, right? We've seen that politics, you know, everything.
Rebrand them public.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To get the public and the fans to accept that their favorite celebrity is crazy, and on drugs and just having a breakdown. It's like perfect, right? It's like the perfect whole setup. When in actuality, these individuals are screaming for help. And those cries for help, a lot of the times they fall on deaf ears because people will just chalk it up to the ramblings of a mad person, as they've been told by the media.
Right. You know, let's go to another star. Yes. I am her cheerleader, but she hasn't quite bounced back yet. This is someone who has fallen through the cracks in the industry, Amanda Bynes. So she's a child star whose rise to fame was as swift as her fall from grace. She had her breakup role on All That to her own show, The Amanda Show. She was also in What I Like About You, which was also produced by Dan Schneider, but we'll go back to that. Amanda was just a household name, and behind the scenes, her journey was fraught with challenges. There we go. Fun fact, I actually auditioned for All That. Like, there was an open casting call.
Can you imagine?
God. It was really bad. I'm not even gonna tell you about it. But I was like 8 years old. Unfortunately, I never got a call back. And that was just kind of the extent of my child acting career. And I did a live audition in front of like an entire stadium.
If you went there with your parents or something like that, and they looked like they were gonna be like by your side and they weren't pliable, that might have been a deal breaker too. Who knows? You know?
I think it was just really bad.
Oh, don't worry. I was there. I did auditions, plays, all that other stuff. I never got picked up, but now looking back to those days, how I was so upset and like, you know, I just felt like a failure and all this stuff. Looking back now, I'm like, I'm actually kind of glad that it never worked out, because I tried to get in like really, really early in life.
Yeah, I mean, that's right, because you're in New York.
Mhm.
I'm, around Los Angeles. So
Mhm.
it's like we are in the two largest
Like
states,
hubs.
right?
Yeah.
Industry hubs, exactly.
Mhm.
So, her career began at just 10 years old when she did join the cast of All That in 1996, which is what, like third grade for me.
Yeah.
But her comedic timing was just so sharp and so vibrant that she quickly became a fan favorite. As her popularity grew, though, so did the pressures of fame, and she became a specific producer's favorite.
Yeah. So by 13, Amanda had her own sketch comedy show, The Amanda Show, which premiered in 1999. The show was a hit, but it also marked the beginning of a complex relationship with producer Dan Schneider. We wanted to show you a well, kind of don't want to show you, but you got to get the picture of it, so we're going to show. It's basically a compilation clip to get an idea of the wildly inappropriate storylines and scripts that was on this show. And as adults looking back, I didn't look at it this way when I was a kid, but it was definitely doing something to the brain as a child watching it.
Well, and that's the whole point. That's the whole
Mhm.
point, right? I mean, you get into subliminal messaging.
Yeah,
You
talking to
get-
your subconscious. You don't even know what's
Right.
happening. Mhm.
You get into, we will see more in the clip, but you get into these sexual innuendos that
Mhm.
are on air, these crude humor moments that are really for adults, being introduced to people that are, or children that are often younger than the actors, right? So Amanda Bynes is 13 years old, but I mean, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids are like the main demographic for the show.
Right. All right, let's take a look.
And clean underpants.
Don't forget about the prize inside. I got lotion.
What color socks are you wearing?
Well, they're a lovely blue, but what happened to our discussion of the cheeses? I can't feel my feet!
My name is Penelope Tate.
Great.
I just happen to be Amanda's #1 fan, please.
Oh, all right.
See this? This sneaker once housed Amanda's actual left foot. I found it when I was rooting through Amanda's garbage.
Interesting.
I'm going to ask Amanda to autograph it after the show. On the tongue. Would you like to sniff it?
Not really.
Your loss. Ah, that's good.
So cringe.
Yeah.
And there is a rumor about Dan Schneider and his obsession with feet. You'll see that in other clips too that we show from other people, but that's definitely a thing. And that's just a few clips and many, many other shows on Nickelodeon that we as millennials grew up and realized that what we were watching then was so wrong. And the adults in those rooms should have said no. The kids are off the hook because they don't know any better. There was many, many adults making those decisions in those rooms.
Right. And there's a documentary out called Quiet on Set where the two female producers who I believe were on season 1 of the Amanda Show, there's a large controversy about that, but they actually oftentimes went to Dan Schneider and was like, has this been cleared? Like, because the content was wildly inappropriate.
Right.
Yeah. So, one of those adults in the room, again, was Dan Schneider, known for creating and producing several Nickelodeon shows, and he took a particular interest in Amanda's career. So, some former cast members and crew have described their relationship as unusually close. Editor Karen Finley Thompson mentioned seeing Amanda give Schneider neck massages, hugging him on set, just being like very touchy-feely. She found that odd, and we actually have a clip of just one of those scripted segments from her time on the Amanda Show. And I believe that is one of the people that did speak out, like I just mentioned in the workroom. So, that's just like really crazy looking back on it. And to think that, again, nobody thought it was okay, but they cleared it anyways. Like, I just feel like this was kind of a test, right? I believe that everything Nickelodeon threw at us had hidden messages, and they were just like trying
absolutely.
What they were able to get away with and how far they pushed the envelope. So, this is a popular theory among many as well. Specifically, like I mentioned, the female writers in the room. And we have a compilation, I believe from the Daily Mail, that goes over exactly that.
Okay, so we're gonna actually start here. We have Amanda Bynes and Dan Schneider. Yeah, this is one of the infamous ones that everybody was like, "What?" All right, here you go.
Today, my special guest is the executive producer of the Amanda Show, Dan Schneider.
Hi.
Now, you're the executive producer of the show.
Yes, I'm the executive producer and the head writer.
You actually wrote the words we're saying to each other right now.
Yeah. Yes, I wrote this whole conversation that we're having right here. Give me an iced tea. Can we have an iced tea before sent to the executive producer?
I see.
Now, see now some I see now sent to the executive.
Hi, welcome to my Tuesday. Today, my special guest is the executive producer of the Amanda Show, Dan Schneider.
Hi.
Now, you're the executive producer of the show?
Yeah, I am the executive producer and I'm the head writer.
You actually wrote the words you're saying to them right now?
Yes, I actually wrote this whole conversation that we're having right now.
I see. Now, since you're the executive producer of the show, can I have a raise?
No.
Okay. How about I play the spaghetti?
Nah.
No?
I'm kidding, I'll have some spaghetti. Spaghetti. All right.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Very good spaghetti.
Yeah, okay. That's enough of that. So, I mean, she's in a jacuzzi, which is an adult thing. Like, kids don't go in jacuzzis, and she's in there with an adult. Yeah, she's holding a drink with a little umbrella in it, kind of like it's kind of like a little hint at like she's drinking, but she's not drinking. Like it's just all these little innuendos that go on, and it's like, why does she have a segment as a young girl where she brings in guests into her jacuzzi and has like a little jacuzzi party moment to have like an interview with them? Like, why is that what you choose as an executive producer, director, to be part of this young girl show? Like, it doesn't make... Oh, it's not funny. It's not funny. It's like, wow. It's just wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, that closeness extended beyond the set. According to reports, Schneider attempted to help Amanda gain emancipation from her parents when she was just 16. This move reportedly caused a rift between Schneider and Amanda's family. And you think about this, when we talk about children being plucked from the masses, right? We said that at the beginning, and being chosen not only for their clear talents, but because of the willful absence of their parents that allow these industry folks to slip in and become the guardian. So now you have this person who's allegedly being inappropriate with this child now becoming their legal guardian.
Right. So, I mean, while Amanda's on-set persona was that of a bubbly, confident teen, the pressure of fame was taking a toll on her behind the scenes. So in 2010, she actually retired temporarily from acting, citing a desire to focus on her personal life and education. But we will see that didn't quite happen.
Yeah. I mean, the challenges didn't end there with in the years following her retirement. Amanda faced a series of legal and personal issues, including arrests and hospitalizations. In 2013, she was placed under conservatorship, which lasted until. So of course, that's just like the next rung on the wheel. Yeah.
And again, I'm not laughing because
It's like delirious. Like all of this is just going on, and we're just supposed to just go about our day and go to clock into work, and everything's fine, but it's not fine.
I mean, it's the child assembly line. If you don't comply, then they will mark you unstable.
Yeah.
They will have someone control your finances because they deem that you aren't in the right state of mind to do so. They will drive you crazy and further cement that new reputation.
Yeah.
You
think about like the perfect crime, right? Like people are always mentioning things of like the perfect crime. This is the perfect crime because you created this foundation. You got these kids, allegedly. These kids are getting hooked on drugs in your presence, hooked on liquor, and hooked on over sexualizing themselves because it's been told to them basically in a roundabout way by the adults around them that this is cool, this is okay, you're just a budding youth that just exploring, becoming an adult, and your body changing, and it's fine, and then you get addicted to these substances, and then as one does when they are addicted to these substances, eventually the party's over and it starts affecting your body really bad, and you take more and more, as Drew Barrymore said, and then you become this person who's just like lashing out because now you're dealing with the addiction, and then they say, oh look, she's lashing out, we gotta come in and take control, and like here comes the it's just like, come on, like you gotta be kidding me. Like you really do. It's wild. But yeah, we actually we have a clip here of Amanda Bynes talking with Good Morning America about her road to recovery and her decision to basically return to acting. So this was that moment in time.
With actress Amanda Bynes speaking out publicly for the first time in 4 years after facing troubles in the spotlight. ABC's Mara Schiavocampo is here with her story. Good morning, Mara.
Amy, good morning. In this new interview, Bynes speaks candidly about her prior drug use and her life now. From the new career she's embarking on to a little surprise that her fans will be really happy to hear about.
This is the new Amanda Bynes.
I love her music. I love everything about her.
Speaking on camera for the first time in 4 years to fashion blogger Diana Madison.
I hike, I go spinning, take spinning classes, and I feed the homeless.
The former child star from Nickelodeon's All That.
Good evening. I'm Amanda.
Went on to star in hits like What a Girl Wants.
So are those the girls that are coming out?
And She's the Man.
What up?
But then she started making headlines for all the wrong reasons. A series of driving violations, disturbing tweets, even a hospitalization under a psychiatric hold.
So everything we saw at that time of her life, which was like the darkest time of her life, was a reaction to her smoking marijuana and whatever, hardship that she was going through at that time.
Now, the actress is revealing details about what was happening at that tumultuous time in her life, saying that her look then was inspired by reality star Black China.
Did Black China really steal your look? I stole her look.
And saying she appreciates how her former All That cast member Nick Cannon tried to reach out to her.
I know that he called me family, and I love that. He's definitely a family member to me, too.
The 31-year-old Bynes saying she's now drug-free and has enrolled in a fashion school with plans to launch her own collection.
I've been going to school lately, fashion school, FITM, and I love it. I've learned how to sew, I make patterns, and I want to start a clothing line in the future.
But the biggest revelation? Bynes, who retired from acting in 2012, sharing she's ready to return to TV.
I do miss acting, and I actually have something surprising to tell you. I'm going to start acting again.
Yes!
I want to do TV, maybe a few guest spots on some shows that I'm a fan of, and maybe another TV show where I'm the star of it.
She did not.
No.
And I believe that interview was 2018. And she's been a lot rockier since, but she is still focused in fashion. I believe she did complete FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, their Los Angeles campus. And, again, her relationship with the entertainment industry did remain strained. Again, she might have really wanted to return to acting, or maybe it was something that she said to gain attention. I don't know, but she occasionally resurfaced in the public eye. But these appearances were often brief and then followed by long periods of silence. She has a Instagram now, but people are trying to make accounts, fake accounts, claiming that it's her and claiming to have needing money. Oftentimes, she has a verified. Well, okay, so she doesn't actually have a TikTok account, but it's verified. There's an Amanda Bynes verified.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this, and I had no clue.
And people,
I was seeing all these
falling
videos,
for
and
it.
I'm just like, oh, this is so great. I was feeling really good about it. Even one where it showed where she was getting the tattoo removed from her face, and she was changing her makeup, and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh wow, she looks like she's maybe on the road to healing. And then you were like, that's not her actual account. And I'm just like, no way.
Yeah, and the thing is, because it's verified by TikTok somehow, I don't know how that was approved, but you can tell it's not her, because there'll be TikTok stories and it'll say, I'm really struggling, I need $30 sent to my Cash App. And Amanda spoke out about this maybe twice, and the account's been going on for 5 years. And it has 300,000 followers. So most people think it's her because this person is directly taking all of the content from her Instagram and, putting it off as their own. But the only thing that she has is Instagram at the moment. And
yeah, I looked it up too, by the way, from what you were saying before. She graduated from California's Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. After 5 years of studying, she enrolled back in 2014. She was reportedly kicked out of the school and then returned 3 years later in 2017. So that was right before this interview. So she was probably that was kind of, if you think of the roller coaster ride, that she was on, this was kind of a more up moment where she returned back. She's probably trying to, get her life back together. Then she went on the interview. Then she's like, maybe I'm feeling healthier. I'm feeling confident again. Maybe I'll return to acting. It's really sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
But basically, Amanda's story is a stark reminder of the pressures faced by child stars in Hollywood. The industry often prioritizes profit over well-being. We know this, leaving young talents to navigate fame without the necessary support systems. In fact, to try and do some PR damage control, Dan Schneider even talks in an interview about how crucial it is to have therapists on set where there were none at all. And it's kind of odd too, because the people in the child stars in Quiet on the Set, they had mentioned that in the Quiet on the Set. And he just kind of adopted that as a great idea that he thought should have always been implemented. It was, at least that's what I got from it. Yeah.
It's definitely crucial that we as a society definitely advocate for better mental health resources and protection for young performers. Her journey is far from over, and we hope that she continues to find healing and happiness. She doesn't seem as charismatic and conventionally beautiful, when it comes to Hollywood standards. And I think that she may be looking a certain way to seem undesirable to the industry, as oftentimes former stars do as a protective mechanism. And definitely compared to her earlier days. And she is now focusing on fashion. Like you said, she went to FIDM, and she actually had an art show I think it was a year and a half ago now, where she had it in downtown LA. And while the internet is often very cruel and quite frankly assholes in regards to her presentation, especially on X and TikTok, I am just seeing these rage bait posts trolling what happened to Amanda, how'd she end up like this? What do you see? It's like, okay, you clearly know what.
Yeah, exactly.
And I actually did repost a TikTok circulating around that covered her art show premiere from about again, a year and a half ago. That did turn out to be a success. And it did see me. It did make me, really happy to see her thriving in that environment, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, she has to make her own path. You know, like she's gonna you know, just like all the rest of us, like when you go down a spiral for so long and then you try to pick your life up again, it's not always going to be like a smooth uphill sail. It's like, you know, you're gonna have some moments where you're gonna fail, and then you're gonna get discouraged, and then you're gonna have to regain your confidence. You know, just human, just like the rest of us. So, you know, we just wish her all the best. I hope that she continues to do what she loves. Maybe kind of stay off social media a bit. I'm sure she doesn't go on and like read comments or anything like that. She's probably learned that all these years, but just, you know, concentrate on herself, do what she loves, and become the adult that she wants. And Amanda Bynes, you know, was not the only one who was exploited by the industry and used for sick, age inappropriate jokes. What about Ariana Grande? Why don't you tell us about her?
Yeah, so Ariana Grande, she shot to fame as Kat Valentine on Nickelodeon's Victorious, and then later on the spin-off show Sam and Cat. Her quirky character and impressive vocals quickly made her a fan favorite. Like, there's this dark theory on TikTok that Grande's character got a lobotomy.
Yes.
Like, there's like videos that will say like pre-lobotomy Cat.
Yeah.
In season 2, because she appeared to be less intelligent, more flirty, more ditzy, and more sexual on the show.
Just the whole like narrative like swirling around behind that is not cool. But yeah, so behind the scenes there were concerns. The recent docuseries Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, has brought to light allegations of inappropriate behavior and a toxic work environment at Nickelodeon during the time Ariana was part of the network.
Yeah, and so I brought it up earlier in the episode, but the docuseries does highlight claims against Dan Schneider, who not only was the creator of All That and The Amanda Show, but just several Nickelodeon hits. And the allegations include fostering a hostile work environment and includes inappropriate content in shows, again, where the demographics were aimed specifically at children.
Right. One example cited in a scene from Victorious where Ariana's character is involved in suggestive situations, raising questions about the appropriateness of such content for young actors and audiences. We actually have that clip, compilation of those odd moments, and you be the judge.
Said something like a sentence, thought to yourself, wow, like I bet nobody else on earth has ever said those exact words that I just said. That happens to me a lot. So now, just for fun, I'm gonna say 3 sentences that I bet not one person has ever said before in the history of mankind. Sentence number 1. Oh man, my uvula got stuck between that hamster's toes. See? That could never happen because your uvula is that swingy thing in the back of your throat right here.
Yeah.
Way you could get it stuck between a hamster's toes. Sentence number 3. I'm soaking wet! Quick, somebody bring me the ocean! No one would ever say that. Why? Because if you were soaking wet and you were upset about it, the last thing you'd want is for somebody to bring you the ocean. Because the ocean is even more wet than even the wettest person in the world. Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out.
I can't even look at that. That is like so gross.
Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty. It's not possible.
Yeah. That's enough.
We all know what that was supposed to symbolize.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, even okay, so let's say, just for argument's sake, right? They're doing a skit. I mean, you know, a lot of these skits are just, there's really no way else to go but these like sexual innuendos. It's just kind of like all based around that. But like, you know, certain moments where she's like making these like weird facial expressions and stuff like that, it's like, you know, the people that are watching this, she may not be thinking in her head that she's doing this, but it's coming across that way. An adult watching this that is recording this and is saying, wouldn't they yell cut and then say, okay, you can't do it like that, you got to do it more like this because it looks really odd. And not even like explain to her what it looks like, just kind of like say, we, you know, do it like this again, and like show her to do it. Just every opportunity in post and editing and all of these different things, they left all of this in. So every single person that was part of this whole charade, I don't care who was the boss. I'm sorry. Like, you need to be questioned about like what you've done. Like, I don't care if you thought you were going to lose your job. I really don't. That's insane.
Right. I mean, it was directed to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
So not only were they complicit in airing something that could appear sexual, it was supposed to be that way, right?
Mhm.
That's going back to, you know, my thought of seeing of Dan Schneider seeing what he was able to get away with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree.
it's so crazy to watch and think of not only like what happens in these moments and what it was doing to Ariana Grande, but to the adolescent viewers and their perception of just what's like inappropriate conversations and actions as children. And Ariana Grande has since expressed and addressed these concerns. Like in an interview of the Pod Crushed podcast, she expressed the need for safer environments for child actors, advocating for, again, mandatory therapy and the presence of guardians on set. So if she was advocating for the presence of guardians on set, it makes me think that the adults were not in the room.
Yep. Yeah, she also mentioned reevaluating her experiences on Victorious, acknowledging that in hindsight, some content was inappropriate and that young actors often lacked the support that they needed.
Right. And these revelations have really sparked a broader conversation about the treatment of child actors in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call for networks, producers, audiences to ensure that the well-being of young performers is prioritized over ratings and profits. Like it has to end now. And you know how you guys do that? You know how you actually make an impact? Stop watching it. Don't turn it on. Make their viewership go all the way down, and they'll understand that what they're showing is not working. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. We have been conditioned to like not look away in these situations. I mean, it's definitely a problem. But we are now going to talk about Drake Bell. Drake Bell was also on. So all that was like the original show, which Amanda Bynes was on, and then Amanda Bynes, when she got her own show, The Amanda Show, that's when Drake Bell was on, and then Drake Bell ended up having a spinoff, which was called Drake and Josh. So we are going to talk about the trauma that he endured working in Hollywood, and specifically during his time on Nickelodeon.
That's right. Recently, the docuseries Quiet on the Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, has brought to the forefront some harrowing accounts from this former Nickelodeon star, for sure.
Yeah, so we are actually going to show a clip in which he did have his own share of being subjected to suggestive, age-inappropriate content. And he was also one of the few who courageously shared his experience of being sexually abused by Brian Peck, a dialogue coach on the show.
Yeah, so this is just a little clip to just kind of show you like what his show was about. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Penn City Records is going to be there, so can we please get this right? Hey, you got any sunblock? What? We're playing outside at night. Oh, you just don't want to share your sunblock. Oh.
Also, what is dude wearing?
Ooh.
And the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly.
You know, like, so, and he was one of the few who courageously shared his experience of being sexually abused by Brian Peck, a dialogue coach on the show. So let's set the scene. Drake Bell was a huge name on Nickelodeon, the Amanda Show, then Drake and Josh, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Brian Peck was a dialogue coach, not a small-time extra. He was working with all the major kids shows.
Yeah, I mean, in 2004, Brian Peck was actually arrested and charged with 11 counts of sexual abuse against a minor. At the same time, we didn't know who the victim was until that documentary, Quiet on Set, aired. And then on that documentary, Drake Bell came forward for the first time, right?
Yep. Yeah, and he basically said what no one had dared to say on the record. He was that minor in the case, and he was just 15 when Peck allegedly began essaying him.
Yeah, it wasn't a one-time incident. Drake says it was repeated. He used the word brutal. He said it happened more than once, and it involved acts that left him traumatized both physically and emotionally. Peck groomed him over time, using his position as a trusted adult on set. And I did see that documentary. Like, there was even a point where he took Drake to Disneyland, got a hotel room outside of Disneyland, and allegedly, right, was inappropriate with him in the hotel room. That was one of the many charges that came to light.
Yeah, so I mean, let's break that down. Grooming, y'all. Is when a predator builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with a child to manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. It's calculated. It's not by accident. It's not something that happens after a series of events. It's something that they get really good at. They know their target is young and impressionable and won't understand certain things. And they've most likely have done it before, and if not caught, will do it again. It's a psychological warfare.
Right. And also in that same docuseries, we learned about Brian Peck's connection to convicted serial killer John Wayne Gacy.
You can't make it up.
Yeah, it's insane. So former child actor Kyle Sullivan recounted visiting Peck's home and discovering a painting of a clown holding balloons. Peck revealed that the artwork was a gift from Gacy, inscribed with a personal message to Brian. I hope you enjoy the painting. Best wishes, your friend, John Wayne Gacy. I literally have the chills from that.
Like, even if that's something that, like, whatever other crazy people have decided to become pen pals with John Wayne Gacy, he probably signed it the same way, you know, whatever. But who cares? Like, what are you doing being a pen pal with somebody who's accused of harming young boys and, you know, and murdering them? Like, why would that appeal to you to go, you know, to go chill with this guy and then also have his picture up on the wall as kind of like a shrine to your relationship and your connection to this person? Like,
yeah.
So Sullivan also noted that that Peck maintained a collection of letters and photographs from Gacy, which he kept in his nightstand. This pen pal relationship between Peck and Gacy, who was known for murdering 33 young men and boys in the 1970s, added a deeply unsettling layer to Peck's profile. Drake Bell, who was accused, who has accused Peck of sexual abuse during his teenage years, expressed that the presence of Gacy's painting in Peck's home intensified his fear and trauma, which I don't know if that was on purpose that he did what he did, or But if you're a young kid and you see that and you know the history, like, yeah, and then you're feeling like you're being attacked by this person, you feel like you have no way out, then you see that, then you have to worry about your life, and then like, if you don't have anybody to turn to and you're young, it feels like there really is no one for you to turn to. And no matter where you are, you got this like predator person just swarming around you. But he described feeling as though he was being watched by the image of a notorious serial killer while enduring this abuse, which compounded his sense of helplessness and dread. I don't even know how this guy is out and about. How was he let out of prison? Like, you're basically like people go away for life for taking someone's life, right? Like that's a punishment for a crime, but you're essentially taking someone's life when you're destroying their childhood like this, when you're destroying their life for decades to come, that you have to try and build a new foundation for yourself. There needs to be way stronger punishments for people who harm children. It's not right. I don't. Yeah. But yeah, so Drake said Peck made him feel like he couldn't say no. He was just a kid trying to do what he was told, trying to stay employed, make adults happy. It's some like serious deep manipulation. In 2004, Peck pled no contest to 2 felony counts involving SA and served 16 months in prison. But let me tell you, he was initially charged with 11 counts of including lewd acts on child and oral copulation.
Crazy.
I know.
Drake said that the court proceedings were incredibly hard on him, especially because Peck was allowed to cross-examine him in court. Like, can you even imagine being forced to sit in the same room in front of your abuser and answer his questions with his narrative?
That's absolutely disgusting. And get this, Nickelodeon never offered Drake any support. No trauma counseling, no legal guidance, just silence. Just make it all go away, kind of thing.
Yeah, Drake said the abuse affected his entire life. He started acting out, got into legal trouble, and struggled with identity and trust. People saw his issues, but never knew what was behind them. So I don't know if you remember, there was like a controversy with Drake. There were several controversies, and people couldn't quite explain away like his erratic behavior. So now that people have seen the documentary, it does give some closure as to why he was acting out, right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine everybody around you that's supposed to be the ones who would take care of you are just like kind of turning their back on you, and you're going through all these things, and then of course you're going to lash out. Of course, you're going to try and be seen by somebody, by anybody, like, however you can possibly do it. So it just kind of seems like a natural reaction, or it could just be like, F it, like, I can't take all of this anymore. I'm just going to go numb, and just do whatever. But yeah, and when he finally spoke out and quiet on the set, he said it wasn't for sympathy. It was to expose the system that enabled Peck and failed him, which I absolutely believe. I don't, anybody who I don't even know where he got that from, because anybody who came out and said that, it was probably some other predators in the industry that said something like that. They're absolutely wrong. He said, and I quote, "It's time people know what happened to me." So we also have a short clip of him on the Good Guy podcast, just talking about the trauma he endured and how it was hard to remember a lot. So let's just listen to him in his own words talking about that.
About our relationship, from Drake and from Amanda's show, and I don't know if this is like just because we've made a lot of bad choices in our lives, or if it's just from trauma. But
yeah,
I have a lot of trouble remembering a lot of things. And things come back as people say things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. Like, I was talking to, remember Jill? Remember my girlfriend Jill?
Yeah, your ex-girlfriend.
I was talking to her the other day, and she had mentioned she had there's this something that I do just for for comfort as an adult, and she mentioned something, and it I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I do that, so sometimes things come back. But what I was saying was from Amanda's show, that was the time when we were hanging out and going bowling and staying at each other's places, and you come to my mom's house and we do that. And then as that big break between Drake and Josh and Amanda's show is when I told my mom what was going on. We went to the police, the investigation, all of the stuff that you saw in the documentary. That was when all of that was going on. And then when we shot the pilot, we were in the middle of the investigation, but nobody had known anything because Brian hadn't been arrested.
Right.
So I had to come back from where, the Amanda show, where the dude was, where the abuse was happening.
Yes.
The worst part about it being that was my having the monster in your own in your safe place. It's that's the only place I'm comfortable is when I get to set and hang out with you guys and we go.
Oh goodness, so much that he said in there. I mean, the beginning part where he was just things come back to him that he forgotten. I mean, you think about if you're going through a traumatizing moment, a lot of people just zone out, if they're being abused, and they block it out so that way their brain can heal and not have to deal with it. And then that, and just all of these different coping mechanisms that he does now that he didn't realize that it stemmed back from the trauma he endured.
That's what PTSD is. A lot of people who have dealt with childhood trauma don't remember chunks of their childhood. And that is, again, like you mentioned, because your brain is trying to protect itself from processing it.
From going crazy, yeah.
But it leads to a lot of dissociation. And then when people go to therapy as adults and that all comes back out to light, they have to deal with that and process it. And it's oftentimes way more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all just kind of comes flooding back, things that you didn't even realize were there that happened, and then you have to deal with them. So it's a long journey to get back to, and that's what we were talking about Amanda Bynes. It's she's on this journey of healing, but it's not going to be clean. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be fluid. It's going to be up and down and side to side, and it's going to be all over the place because she's trying to do this hard thing, that we've all tried to deal with things in our lifetime, but a lot of these kids, they dealt with things that just out of the scope of your understanding,
right. And you have to remember, Josh, so the person who's interviewing Drake, so he has a podcast now that was Drake's co-star. So Drake couldn't tell Josh what was going on because it was an ongoing investigation. Yeah. And so Josh and Drake actually had a falling out for several years.
Aww.
So now that this documentary has shed some light on what the situation was, I believe, don't quote me on this, because I'm just kind of spitballing, but I think this is one of the first interviews that Drake had with Josh in years.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was exactly the first one, but they just reconnected super recently.
And it's good too that they're doing this as adults, because if they tried to, have this whole flesh out while they were kids, trying to figure out what was going on, they probably wouldn't have had a different reaction to each other, because you're a child. You don't really understand the nuances of how the brain works, and why would you stay? Why would you deal with that? Why didn't you tell anybody? Why do you keep coming back? But as an adult, you understand what what can be happening to a child's brain and how much pressure they have, and just not really making the right decisions for themselves when the adults around them should have been doing that. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I know he even like wrote a song.
I was gonna see if you actually wanted to. We pulled up the lyrics of that. If you wanted to read the lyrics and we can analyze what we think that's about.
Yeah. So okay, the song is called "In the End." These are some of the lyrics from it. Wake up the monsters in your head. Going back into your subconscious to see what you've blocked out. Have left you all to yourself. Nobody understands, right? It's all right if ugly little things remind you of how it felt another day. No one tells you what it means, what's in your way, and poisoning your dreams. The darkest place that you've ever been, and in the end, are you stronger? So it's like, do I relive all of these things that I've blocked out? Are they going to actually fix me in the end, or am I going to be worse off of it? Nobody around me is going to understand. I'm going to have to basically deal with this on my own. Another part of it says, do you no longer need to recover? And where have you been since it's been over? Over my shoulder, under my skin, will you ever return again? So the person that abused him is, in his mind, is constantly looking over his shoulder. It's in his body, like, it's just kind of like it's under his skin. It's something that's always there with him as an adult. Like, it's really, really sad. It's so heartbreaking, but I'm so glad that he's using his talent as an outlet to heal. But even more heartbreaking, you guys, is this man, Brian Peck, got rehired in the industry after prison. He worked on, wait for it, Disney Channel shows. He worked on kids' content after being put in prison for lewd acts and assaults on minors. People wrote letters of support for him during sentencing, including Hollywood insiders. So, the people around him in the industry, that one of them should have said, no, this is wrong, actually went to bat for him. But yeah, so just, it's just insane.
Yeah. I mean, I know that some of the people that went to bat for him were like, I believe Danny Masterson was one of them. Let me look it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a whole network of people. But yeah, so everything that I just told you, just kind of let that sink in.
Yeah, so, okay. It was not Danny Masterson, but Danny Masterson was arrested for lewd acts as well. Mm-hmm. And Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis faced backlash after it was revealed that they wrote character letters in support of Danny Masterson. But James Marsden, who is an actor known for his roles in the X-Men series, he was in TV shows like Dead to Me. He was with Amy Adams in the Disney movie Enchanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He supported both Brian Peck and Danny Marsden. So it's all connected.
Yeah. I was just looking it up myself, and I found that also.
Yeah. And it looks like, so I know that you mentioned that Brian Peck came back to Disney. He was actually in a few episodes. So he was on camera on Boy Meets World after he had spent time in prison.
Yeah, that's insane. So a convicted predator got to keep working with kids while his victim, Drake, was left to pick up the pieces. That is what happens when image matters more than accountability. This isn't just an isolated incident. The docuseries exposes a pattern of toxic behavior and abuse within Nickelodeon during the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, so again, from inappropriate on-screen content to boundary-crossing behavior behind the scenes, the environment was rife with misconduct.
Yeah, and perhaps the most troubling, many adults on set turned a blind eye, as we continue to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stark reminder that fame and power often overshadow the safety and well-being of young performers. And again, they had no advocate.
Right. Right. Either the parents were complicit, or they just they didn't know. Like they allowed they signed over their kids to the industry. They were told that they have this person watching out for them, that person watching out for them, all of this stuff, and the parent goes, "Oh, okay, that sounds great." And they sign them over, and behind the scenes, this is all going on. And since the release of Quiet on the Set, there's been a surge of support for the survivors.
Yeah, so former stars like Steve Burns. Do you remember Steve from like Blue's Clues?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he has expressed heartbreak over the revelations, emphasizing the need for systemic change. I believe like Steve left, and then it was it Joe?
Who took over for him? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so Steve Burns. Yeah, so Steve Burns left. Let me see if it had to do with the conditions on set.
I feel like I feel like he had like his own thing, his own controversy that came out as well.
It looks like he wanted to leave, get out of the industry, and go to college. It says, contrary to popular belief, music was not the reason for his departure. Oh, is he a musician now?
It says something about, okay, so his off the grid life in the mountains. Good for him. And why he left the beloved series nearly 25 years ago. So I guess he also he had internal struggles with depression. And Steve revealed the truth behind his departure, opening up about the internal struggles he was facing at the time. He said, "It was my job that day to provide America's children with self-esteem, but I didn't always have my own approval." So he was basically like thrown out there on the screen, even though he was dealing with internal struggles, and he was, tasked with making everybody else's, self-esteem go up when his was like all the way down. That's just,
I mean, oftentimes, to gear off topic for a second, but oftentimes mental health, again, is ignored. And that's why a lot of comedians are actually severely depressed. I mean, you think of Robin Williams, who did not have access to the help that he needed.
Right. Right.
This is very common. This is very common in the industry. So,
and you find that a lot with comedians too. I've learned is like, like if you think of people who are like dealing with things, like they'll make jokes to just lighten the mood or to hide like mask, like just regular people to like mask what they're really feeling inside, and they'll just keep on performing, and like these comedians, they'll just keep performing, and nobody will be the wiser that they're actually going through so much turmoil. But,
right. I mean, support isn't enough, right? We really need accountability. We need to ensure that the industry prioritizes the safety of its youngest talents. I think it's time for Hollywood to stop exploiting its stars and start protecting them.
Yeah. And thanks to Quiet on the Set, we're finally seeing a reckoning. Drake's voice is one of the many that's forcing Hollywood to confront its failures. And fans, they're angry, and rightfully so. This is about more than just one man. It's about systems that protect predators and silent victims. It's about demanding change so no other child goes through what Drake. Okay, so now let's talk about Orlando Brown. the funny, charismatic best friend from That's So Raven. On the show, he was known as Eddie Thomas. Here is a quick clip to show his obvious talent and why all of us in the same age group loved this show. So I'm just going to bring that up for you guys. Yeah, good show. He was basically the comic relief, the goofball. And then poof, he was gone. Like, what happened to Orlando Brown is more than a where are they now story. It's a case study in how Hollywood uses and discards young talent. This one gets heavy. Orlando's story is layered with substance abuse, legal troubles, mental health struggles, and really a system that never protected him when the camera stopped rolling. It's basically, it seems like the same like road that they all tend to go down.
Yeah. Let's just kind of rewind. So That's So Raven wrapped in 2007. Orlando Brown, who played Eddie Thomas, should have had the world at his feet. Should have kept acting if that's what he wanted to do. But instead of riding the Disney wave like a lot of his peers, Raven Simone, Kyle Massey, he tried pivoting into music. I think he just released something recently too. I mean, he even dropped tracks like Peter Pan, God It's In Me, and even did like the Christian speaker circuit, showing up at a bunch of churches and youth events. But nothing really took off. The songs were just, I mean, the songs were scattered like across YouTube and mixtape platforms, like on Spotify and stuff too. But while they showed some heart, they didn't really break through. It's like he was desperately trying to rebrand, just trying to find like a post Disney identity, but without the machine behind him or any kind of real support. He was lost, and he definitely did flatline.
Yeah, exactly. The fame machine chewed him up and left him on the sidewalk. And then right after Raven ended, the headlines started to change. In 2007, he was arrested for marijuana possession. He claimed it wasn't his, but that was the tip of the iceberg. It was like the beginning of a slow motion collapse. He kept trying to get work, doing voiceovers, indie appearances, but by 2011, boom, DUI. Then in 2013, jail time, just because he didn't complete his court-ordered alcohol education program. And that's the system. You mess up once and it stacks fast. And then it's on your record, and then you kind of like trying to figure out where you're supposed to go from there. But so then came 2016. That year was off the rails. He was arrested multiple times, domestic battery, drug possession with intent to sell, resisting arrest, and bringing contraband into jail. Like, what was even happening at that point? It was a whirlwind of mugshots and court dates, and it still wasn't like rock bottom.
Yeah, so in 2022, he was arrested again for allegedly threatening a family member with a hammer and a knife. Okay. At that time, he was homeless, staying with his brother to avoid winding up in a shelter. So he pretty much like hasn't really had a break since 2007, which is a span of 18 years, right? When you think about it. So, this wasn't just a bad streak, because he's still struggling today. So 18 years is definitely a lot more than a bad streak. He has like publicly said that he has battled addiction for many years. So the crystal meth, the marijuana, the alcohol, and what he described as a sick attachment to the internet, which, I'm just going to say open to interpretation. But, if he was dealing with some sick thoughts, who knows what rabbit holes he went down.
Right.
But again, that's trauma behavior. That's someone who never got help for the wounds behind the performance, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about there's a Dr. Phil episode that came out in 2018.
As there always is.
As there always is. And it was heartbreaking. He showed up disheveled, disconnected from reality. He claimed he was 4 years sober, but then went on like wild tangents about Michael Jackson being his father, saying he owned Neverland. Yeah, so you can see it. This was a man that was fractured. So let's take a look at some of that in this clip.
How are you? Good to see you.
See you.
Have a seat.
Alrighty.
It's good to meet you. I've just been talking to your friend, Solomon. You've been staying with him for a while, right?
Maybe 3-4 months out.
He speaks well of you.
Thank you.
He thinks you're a very talented guy. You have some odd-looking contacts in your eyes.
Yeah, they're
Are they like snake eyes?
eyelids. It's for Thriller.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So those are like
Yeah.
Halloween type?
Pretty much.
Like
yeah.
reptile.
So tell me why you're here.
To meet you in person, and also to make sure that I thank you, because I know from afar you actually had a lot to do with my transformation. So, thank you so much, and got my family back and a whole bunch of stuff. So
Yeah. What transformation is that?
just heading to the next level of being a man in my own life.
I don't know what's going on.
Importantly, so now that I am, I owe it to people like you and all the others that came before me that I look up to.
You've been very successful in your life. You've got a lot of television. You got a lot of fans out there, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm very grateful for that.
You guys told Claire you were rumors.
I can't believe she believed us.
Shampoo, conditioner, flea remover. She's really sweet with dogs. Lots of sweet with people. That's because she hasn't met us yet.
You were on That's So Raven. How long were you on that show?
When I started, I was 13. Then I ended at 18.
Was that a good thing for you? Did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it tremendously. Actually, we were working on something to basically get us all back together, the cast, and also we're on a show called Coach Eddie. So that's pretty cool. But I had a great time. We definitely were all family as far as the show's concerned. But it's as far as the off stage, it was just even more magical. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you still speak to Raven?
Of course. Of course. I haven't seen her too much lately, but
what's your relationship like with her now?
Right now, it's pretty good. I want to marry her, but I gotta find out a way to ask her. So right about now, I'm just chilling.
Yeah. So
he's literally married to a woman.
During this interview.
Well, yeah, I mean, Raven Simone's a lesbian. She came out.
Oh! I thought you were talking about him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't look. I mean, I could be wrong. Don't take this as fact or anything like that. I'm just speculating. But he looks like he's on a downer of some kind.
I was
like he's
thinking
slurring.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking that too. It's really hard when he's wearing like those reptilian contacts, and that could also be to hide the size of the pupils, right?
Very true. Yes, very true.
And that's something that I just saw because I'm just seeing this clip for the first time. And so to me, the combination of perhaps the slower, slurred speech, and then you compare that with some of his more erratic interviews, it could be one or the other. It could be that he is sober in that interview, and that's why he is speaking more slowly, or he could be on a downer and he's hiding, pupil dilation.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah, there was something like going on with his slurred speech. He was floating, just kind of like, even when he was like talking and like going off into different, parts of his story, he just kind of looked like he was, getting away from himself. But yeah. So there was that clip. And it's not
the clip. Do we have the clip of him talking about Michael Jackson in there?
It's in one of like the full interviews or whatever, but I actually couldn't find it. But he did talk about that in the interview with him. And it just kind of like goes through if you think about somebody who's going through trauma, right? Like we just got off the Casey Anthony trial, and like, how they were talking about how people behave when they go through trauma, how they can compartmentalize their memories into their head so that way they don't have to deal with certain memories at certain times, how they can disassociate from certain things in their life, how they can create a whole world in their head of things that are going on that is easier to deal with than what's actually happening or happened to them in their life. And I just see that in a lot of these stars when they haven't gotten to that to the end of that road of recovery, when there really is no end. I mean, you're constantly recovering, but when you get to that point where you're actually doing well in your life, and they seem to be in a fantasy world when they talk about things, or they don't want to address certain things, or stuff like that. So I just kind of get that feeling from him when he makes certain claims, but yet he does make some claims in a lot of his videos that are coming out now in some trials, and we're going to get to that in episode 2. But you can kind of see like some allegations that are sprinkled into his rants that are coming out now as possibly valid allegations. So
right. So yeah, I mean, it's hard not to see the connection between child stardom and adult destruction, because Orlando wasn't just like a troubled grown-up. He was, again, a kid failed by a system that banks on your cuteness, but not your recovery. He has never given the tools to cope once the applause stopped, which is why he's essentially had that downfall since That's So Raven ended. Once Hollywood saw that he was disposable, they stopped caring.
Yeah. And guess what? I just found the clip of when he talks about Michael Jackson. Yeah. So let's just show that, so that way we can just kind of show, where this interview went.
Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Who everybody is, what everything is.
Yeah. What's your full name?
My full name is Orlando Brown, Prince Michael Jackson Jr., and that's AKA Blanket.
So what's Prince Michael Jackson Jr.?
Oh, well, it's my nickname I gave to myself. Because my father was Michael Jackson, the great Michael Jackson. So.
Your father was Michael Jackson.
Oh. Okay. So yeah, like I don't know if I don't know if he was being serious, because he does that a lot too. Like if you guys go and look at like some of his recent interviews, he goes off into things where he's kind of like tongue-in-cheeking it, and it looks like he's making a joke. So I don't know if he's half serious, if he really believes that, or if he's just bringing it up. Or there was some theories also that, he's worried about retaliation from the industry from a lot of things that he's come out and said recently, that had possibly happened to him as he was growing up, and like, the different groups that he was hanging out with, that he tries to come off as crazy, come off as like saying things out of left field that aren't true, to kind of protect himself from like whatever he does say, so people won't come after him, and stuff like that, or bring legal, things on him or anything like that. So we've seen it again and again, child actors who age out of their brand and basically are left with the fame withdrawal. We saw that with him when he was trying to transition out of Disney TV into something else, trying to kind of rebrand himself, and then he was probably getting that fame withdrawal. He also had the emotional damage, of course, and zero support. The only time he actually got any help from anybody outside of it was basically when he was being arrested and given all these charges. But that that's not help, but it's like maybe it kind of saved him from making it even worse, who knows. But it just seemed like after his arrest, his life got worse and worse, and his charges got more and more egregious. But they're not protected, they're expendable. So Hollywood loves childlike wonder, but it doesn't care what happens when that child grows up. Orlando Brown is the price of that neglect, his story isn't just cautionary tale. It's a human tragedy, just like all of these. And wherever he is now, we do hope that he's getting the help that he needs, that he's in, some sort of emotional control of everything that's going on. Because under all the chaos, all the mugshots, he's still someone who needed love, still needs care, stability, and something the spotlight never gave him.
Yeah. So, May is actually designated as National Mental Health Awareness Month, focusing on the theme, turn awareness into action to promote mental health awareness and support. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or mental health, please reach out. There's definitely no shame in asking for help, especially with everything that's going on in the world. So here's the number for the SAMHSA National Helpline. It's 1-800-662-HELP. So 1-800-662-4357. They're open 24/7, and there is a text line as well. So just remember, you're not alone.
Yeah, and let's write it down there at the bottom of the screen if you want to take a screenshot. That's there for you as well. But yeah, that's all of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like how do you even begin to wrap your head around all of that? So today we covered Shirley Temple, Drew Barrymore, Amanda Bynes, Ariana Grande, Orlando Brown. None of them are isolated. They're part of a pattern. They're part of a pipeline. And there are thousands of cases like this.
Yeah. And of course, Drake Bell. And these aren't just tales of child stars gone rogue or fame getting into their heads. That's the media's favorite scapegoat. What we're seeing is a system, an industry that recruits young talent, chews them up, spits them out when they've served their purpose or dared to say enough is enough and push back on it.
What we don't talk about enough is the damage doesn't stop with the performers. What about the millions of kids who grew up watching these shows? The subtle and sometimes not so subtle sexualization of these child characters, the inappropriate jokes, the manipulative emotional arcs dressed up as quirky teen comedies.
Yep. I mean, when you've got preteens watching characters their age being flirted with by adults, licking their toes on camera or delivering lines packed with innuendo, you're not just being entertained, you're being programmed. You're telling these kids, these people are telling us, the kids, what's normal, what's acceptable, what's funny. And, spoiler alert, none of it should be. None of it is okay.
Right. So these aren't just about a few messed up episodes of Victorious or The Amanda Show, because it's just really about long-term damage, right? Because young viewers growing up, they are confused. They don't implement boundaries. They are confused about their own value and really just how they're supposed to be treated.
Yep. You're feeding a generation that learns to laugh off being objectified. That sees adults in positions of power as untouchable. And that believes, because the media told them so, that if something feels uncomfortable, it's probably just their fault for being too sensitive. So it's basically gaslighting all of us into believing that these actions are cool. And here's the thing, it didn't just happen. It was curated, directed, broadcasted by adults who knew better or should have known better, and they didn't care. Because ratings, because ad dollars, because a sexualized kid sells more merch, gets more retweets, and looks great on a billboard. So yeah, we're not just calling out Hollywood, we're calling out the entire machine, from the networks to the execs, from the casting agents to the media outlets who gave these predators cover stories and glowing press instead of scrutiny.
Yeah, I mean, the real question we're going to keep asking throughout the series is simple but important. Who knew? Why do they stay quiet, right? Why do the same names and studios keep popping up? Universal, Disney, Nickelodeon, to name a few. And how do we stop the cycle?
Yeah, we're going to keep naming names, connecting dots, and pulling receipts because someone has to. These stories deserve more than a clickbait headline and a tabloid write-up. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, definitely. Share the episode, talk about it, question what you've always assumed about your favorite stars in the industry that made them. Keep your eyes open because the puppet masters, they don't like the light. They don't like being exposed.
No, definitely not. Next episode, we're going even deeper into the dark corners of the industry, the ones with NDAs, grooming allegations, and a PR machine so slick, most of us never knew the real story until now. So we're going to be heading over to the music industry. So stay tuned for that, you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for joining us. You can hit us up on X. You can find me at the Kelly Melody.
Yep, and I'm here on X at Elizabethy213A. Let's just talk about the receipts and not the rumors.
Yeah, so stay skeptical, ask questions, stay loud. And as always, we will catch you next time, right, buddy?
Absolutely. Stay sassy, everyone. Keep the facts coming, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Bye.
Bye.